right, y'all, we're those crazy Mr. Maple guys that talk about Japanese maples 7 days a week here on YouTube, guys. We have a channel you should definitely subscribe to. We promise you won't do that again if you do. Hit that bell and that notification to get notified every single time we post new videos. It's daily here, so if you're a Japanese maple fan, it's gotta be worth a like. We're the brothers that do MrMaple.com. I'm Matt, and that's my brother Tim.
Guys, we're standing here with a large specimen, and we love doing this. Go down and check out specimens, talking about trees where you can see the full shape and form. We're talking about Acer palmatum, Hubbs Red Willow.
Now you guys are gonna ask, that's probably the world's biggest Benihime behind Tim. You'll have to watch our garden walkthrough to learn more about that tree. We're talking about Hubbs Red Willow, absolutely impeccable specimen here in our Buckholtz gardens, guys. This is one of my favorite Leonard Loblam selections. If you've heard me talk about Leonard Loblams before, I get a little bit giddy. I don't do a ballerina dance like Tim, but I get pretty excited. I get pretty fired up for them. They're one of my favorite trees that brings that Asian aesthetic of bamboo, you know, to the garden without all the downside of bamboo. You get that elegant grace of that Leonard Loblam bamboo-esque foliage, but you get it all in a Japanese maple. So you get a lot of benefits there because you have spring color, fall color, and that non-invasive root system of Japanese maples that just give them that superior quality over bamboo. Now, this one has that Leonard Loblam foliage, which means it has that elongated strap-like leaf. Some people have sometimes sold this one under the name willow leaf, although Hubbs Red Willow is the correct name given to it by Dick Wolf.
Some people have put the name of Hubbs Red Willow. Again, that's incorrect. It's Hubbs, H-U-B-B''S, Red Willow.
Don't confuse it with Hubbs Dwarf, H-U-P-P Dwarf. Different Hupp, different Hubbs.
But this plant here, it gives some nice maroon color out there. And with those long Leonard Loblam foliage, those strap leaves blowing in the wind, it gives a softer feel to an upright tree. You know, blood goods are great, but they give a different feel than a Leonard Loblam blowing in the wind. And when you have this out there, it is just amazing, electric, and you get this maroon color. It contrasts so well out in the landscape with that different texture. And basically that softer texture just adds a new dynamic in the garden.
Now, Dick Wolf of Red Maple Nurseries introduced this one. And you know, if you know anything about Dick Wolf, that guy hit some home runs. He was like the Babe Ruth of maples early on. A lot of classic introductions from Red Dragon to Emperor One. He's got a lot of hits under his belt. This one is a great one that's kind of underrated sometimes. I absolutely love this plant. Hubbs Red Willow was named after Elwood Hubb of New Jersey. Guys, it is a phenomenal plant. I think you're gonna love it in your landscape. I talk a lot about that relaxing feel in that Asian garden of the bamboo-like foliage, but for me, there's nothing more peaceful and elegant that brings that kind of aesthetic of Asian gardening out than a Japanese maple with bamboo-like foliage.
Guys, check out the form of this. This is growing in full sun here in Gaston, Oregon. And you see it's got this nice rounded canopy to it. I mean, the shape on this is amazing. It'll end up getting about 10 to 12 feet in height in 10 years, growing about a foot of growth, sometimes 14 inches of growth in a year. Makes an excellent rounded shape. Now, if you're growing this tree in a more shaded situation, you may get a little more openness to this. It may not be as perfectly round, and you may get a little more, so you can see the structure of the plant a little bit more as well.
Now, this is a tree, we talk about trees in terms of 10 to 12 years and like 15-year sizes, guys. This tree's close to 30 years old behind me. Japanese maples, if they quit growing, they're dead. We've seen 400-year-old trees in Japan, so we always like to give people an age comparison for size. This one does slow down a good bit at that 10 to 12 foot range, so a 30-year-old specimen behind us is still only this big. It's an absolutely phenomenal plant, though. Let's take a closer look at some of this foliage. One of the very best things about this tree is the texture. Now, some people call this willow leaf, but that's actually not the first name. Dick Wolf did give this the name Hubbs Red Willow. Not to confuse that again with Hubbs. You'll see Hubbs, H-U-P-P-S. This is Hubbs. Ed Shin actually broke out one of the original Dick Wolf, catalogs to correct somebody on that one time. We always like to get the correct nomenclature. I love this tree for its colors, guys. This thing shows out. You know, you've got a Leonard Loblam, so you already got that strap leaf-like foliage, but I love how dark this gets, contrasting with that bright red new growth. You get some incredible shades on there with a ton of texture. Now, also the bark on this one is a dark chocolatey color, so it gives it a really dark aesthetic in the landscape, making it great to pair with a lot of other Japanese maples. There's really not a bad maple to put around this because it's so unique in the landscape. Now, a lot of gardeners may be gardening with this, not with other maples around it. We'll make some maple suggestions, but one thing that looks really good in an Asian garden around this are lighter colored grasses or even daylilies, because you got an area where you got a lot of green. Hubbs Red Willow is going to come in there and instantly change the dynamic of a very green landscape by giving you a ton of red and a ton of texture.
Talking about pairing, Talon's paired it here with a large Benihime, But my personal opinion would be put this with something like an Acer palmatum rayusin. Put this with something like that because you've got different foliage. You've got a completely different texture and a completely different habit and a completely different color. So the rayusin's green and heavily cascading. Hubbs Red Willow, this thin linear lobum leaf with this upright habit, it just contrasts so well in the garden.
So one of my favorite things to pair with this, Hubbs is one of the darkest linear lobums. I find one of the lightest to be a very fun pairing. One of Buckholz Nursery's own introductions, Yellow Threads, I think looks exceptional with this. It's a light green to yellow in the summer and on the color, and also has the same style leaf, so it pairs so nicely with this very dark coloration. You can get a lot of nice contrast off there. You really can't go wrong pairing anything with Hubbs Red Willow though, because it's that overall shape, color, and texture looks great next to other Japanese maples, and really looks like nothing else in the garden typically. So most of our other plants are really going to play off this and look really nice.
Now, while many people, we focus often on the red willow aspect, this linear lobum leaf that is elongated, this tree is really an exceptional fall color. It gives you a bright cherry red in the fall, and it's a very consistent fall color for a red upright. In fact, to me, it's an exceptional fall color, one of the best.
Yeah, you get more of a cherry red on this one. It's exceptionally durable too. We're here in zone 8 in Gaston, Oregon. This one's taking a lot of sun. These are going to work zones 5 through 9. Now, it's a great plant for full sun up to zone 8 typically. In zone 9, generally you need more late day shade. Zones are really rated on how cold it gets, not how hot it gets. I've got customers in California in zone 10 with this in full sun. So check your own listing of where you're at. Typically that works great for the East Coast because zone 9 Florida is typically below there, is a little bit too much humid for Japanese maples, but definitely hardy down to zone 5. This is a phenomenal plant that has a lot of durability, a lot of color, and just really shows out in the landscape. Now, one thing about Hubbs Red Willow is when you're producing this tree, it should be grafted to Acer palmatum subspecies palmatum. Grafting this to an Emoenum style leaf, you know, a seedling that would have traits similar to that of Osakazuki, can give you exaggerated larger growth. People consider that reversion on this tree. Now, fret not if you have just some bigger foliage on your new growth. Juvenile new growth on this, especially on smaller young plants, may look larger. You'll see your older growth having more of that linear lobum strap leaf-like characteristic. That new growth foliage will age and become more like the old growth, and then next spring when those same branches leaf out, they'll have more of that linear lobum-like foliage. As the tree matures, you'll have less and less of that, or most of it's up at the top of the tree, so you don't really notice that larger foliage on the new growth.
And that's especially true during the summer. We have a whole video on irregular summer new growth we focus and show some linear lobums that do that very thing. I mean, this was an awesome plant. And if you are concerned about any reversions, you can always tag those branches and see if next year they come back with those linear lobum style. And if they don't, then you say, hey, that may be a reversion I need to prune out.
Absolutely beautiful plant though. It can add so much to your landscape, whether it's spring or summer or fall. This one really has a lot of character unto itself. I think you're really going to see the benefits of this one. And whenever possible, we love to get specimens like this on camera, y'all. We love kind of bringing Japanese maples to you, showing you what trees can be as they age. And this is a big specimen here at Buckholz Nursery. You'll rarely see Hubbs Red Willow at this size. This is one of the biggest ones I've ever seen personally, maybe the best specimen I've ever encountered myself. And so I wanted to get it on camera here to show you guys what it can be at its full splendor. Now, if you like that kind of thing, definitely subscribe to our channel. We have more cultivar updates than any English-speaking book ever on Japanese maples right here on the MrMaple Show. And we had 7 days a week of content, all for free, just for subscribing to the MrMaple Show.
So make sure you're subscribed there and check us out on MrMaple.com. Take care.
God bless.
And have a great day.